Welcome to Wealth Coherence. I'm your host, Emily Bouchard, a social worker specializing in human development and fascinated by human potential. For over 20 years, I've been a coach to families with successful businesses and leaders with successful careers, and you may be surprised to learn that true wealth is about coherence. When our inner state of being aligns with how we live, give, lead, and love. In this series, we will explore an integrated model to flourish coherently, because wealth isn't what we have, it's who we are when we are fully aligned. Well, welcome to this episode of Wealth Coherence. I'm your host, Emily Bouchard, and I am delighted to have my co-author with me, somebody I've known for years and have really respected for a long time, Charles Feltman, the author of the Thin Book of Trust. And this is a book that's been used, this is its third edition. It's been a really popular discourse around trust within the business setting. Charles and I have a book that is newly available for pre-launch orders through Barnes & Noble and other sources, and it's coming out physically in November. Charles, why don't you say what the name of it is and a little bit about why we chose to write a book focused on families instead of business?
So, the title that we've chosen for it is The Little Book of Trust and Money, an essential primer for families. So we're putting together those three elements: trust, money, and families. And we're doing that because while there are a gazillion books out there, I think, and articles and everything else talking about money and families, there really aren't any books about trust and families, and certainly no books about how you build and maintain and even, if necessary, repair trust in the context of money concerns within families. So that's kind of what we're up to here is writing about and giving our readers an understanding of trust and how to build it within the context of money in families, which is one of the biggest issues, I think, and you probably know more about this than I do, maybe, Emily, but one of the biggest issues that cause families to fracture in whatever ways, various ways, everything from just stress and arguments to divorce, to estrangement between siblings and parents and children and all of that kind of thing. But fundamentally, we consider money the context and the real underlying issue being trust or the lack thereof.
Yeah, and I'll share that Charles and I have known each other since his book came out. We were both working at the time doing some instruction for the Institute for Preparing Heirs at Pepperdine, and I was so thrilled to find a book that was small, relatable, and really easy to read and understand the concepts around trust, because I've been using the concepts that are in the book since 2004 when I started working with a consulting firm called the Williams Group, and really looking at how families that have operating businesses or looking at transitioning significant assets across generations did really well in terms of their planning, like legal planning, trusts and structures and tax planning. But where things tended to go awry had to do with communication breakdowns and a lack of trust. And so these distinctions that you talk about in the Thin Book of Trust and that we brought into this book of The Little Book of Trust and Money for Families, it's so valuable. And I've seen it be so useful for families, like really large multi-generational families with 27 family members working together on their governance, to parents with two younger children looking at how do we bring purpose and have a sense of trust with our kids that they're not going to become entitled. So it ranges fully, like a full gamut. And I love the fact that we have written a book that is little, that takes on this huge topic. I mean, money and trust, and then families, all kinds of families. And we're making it available and accessible for any family. So while we've applied it in many ways in our work life to family businesses and where there's a lot at stake financially, the same principles in this little book we apply to things like how do you negotiate allowance, or how do you deal with a credit card issue with a teenager, or how does a couple work through differences of how they spend versus save and trust each other? And those are just a few examples. But instead of going into a ton of examples, we provide a framework for how to think about trust.
First, I want to say that for me, this book represents something that I've wanted to write for a very long time. The Thin Book of Trust came out in the first edition in 2009. And not long after that, people started contacting me and saying, this is great for business and I love it and I use it. And are you going to write something for families? And yeah, that'd be great. But I never really found a way in. And this is it. This is the way that I can bring this material into families, I think, or the two of us actually. So it is a big subject. And I'm like, what were we thinking, when we started this? But I think we have something really valuable to offer here in this book.
Well, and I'll just say it's really fun, the origin story of it. Just to riff off of what you said is I have always been looking for a book for families related to this topic, and there wasn't one. And so I would always recommend Charles's Thin Book of Trust to families I was working with. And I think on LinkedIn, I commented on somebody's post and I said, oh, if you're doing trust within families, definitely use Charles's book. And I tagged Charles and he was like, wait, how do you use this book with families? And so that started a great conversation. And then we collaborated on an article for the Family Firm Institute's practitioner on how to apply the principles in a family situation where a young man in a family was impacting trust within the family business and within his family because of a breakdown in one of the distinctions. And we go into detail about that and show how you can apply it in a really effective way. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wealth Coherence. If it resonated, I'd love for you to share it or leave a review. This will help others find their way to this space. And if you're ready to keep exploring what it means to live, lead, and give from a place of coherence, head to emilybouchard.com to stay connected. Until next time, be well internally and allow your external life to be the fullest expression of who you truly are.